Hello everyone. Today, I'm going to tell you an incredible story on the legends in English. An English inspirational story that will help you improve your English and your way of thinking. It's about a man who started with nothing, faced rejection and failure, but still changed the entire world through his creativity, courage, and vision. His name was Steve Jobs. A legend who proved that passion and persistence can turn dreams into reality. If you've ever used an iPhone, a MacBook, or admired a beautifully designed product, you've already felt his impact. But Steve Jobs wasn't born into success. He wasn't given anything easily. His life was full of ups and downs, victories and heartbreaks. Yet he never gave up. This isn't just a biography. It's a lesson in resilience, creativity, and hope. By the end, you'll feel inspired to chase your dreams, no matter how big or impossible they seem. So let's dive into the story of Steve Jobs, the man who proved that crazy ideas can truly change the world. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955. In San Francisco, California. From the very beginning, his life was full of challenges. His biological parents, Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah Jandali, were young college students and not ready to raise a child. So, they made a difficult decision. They gave him up for adoption. Steve was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a loving couple who promised to give him a good life. They were not rich, but they gave Steve something more valuable: love, care, and support. His father, Paul, was a mechanic and craftsman, and he taught Steve how to build and fix things with his hands. From him, Steve learned patience, design, and the beauty of creating something with passion. Imagine that. Steve didn't grow up with his birth parents or even know them. Yet this difficult start didn't stop him. Instead, it made him stronger, curious, and determined to do something great. He turned his challenges into motivation and became one of the most influential minds in history. As a child, Steve was full of curiosity and imagination. He loved exploring how radios, cars, and gadgets worked. His father encouraged him to be precise and take pride in his work, lessons that shaped his future designs. Steve also loved spending time in the neighborhood garages, learning from engineers and dreamers. Though he wasn't the best student in school, he was always thinking differently. That unique thinking would later redefine technology, design, and creativity for the whole world. Steve was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a humble couple from Mountain View, California. Paul was a mechanic who loved fixing things, and Clara was an accountant. They weren't rich, but they gave Steve a home full of love. From a young age, Steve was curious. He wasn't like other kids. While others played outside, he asked questions like, "How does this machine work?" Or, "What happens if I take this apart?" His father noticed this curiosity and started teaching him how to build things. Together they spent hours in their garage fixing cars and gadgets. Paul gave him advice that shaped his life. If you're going to build something, make it the best it can be. That lesson became the heart of Steve's success. Steve was smart, but he wasn't a typical student. He often got bored in class because he found lessons too easy. One teacher said Steve was so intelligent that regular school couldn't challenge him enough. He was also mischievous and loved pranks. Once, he even pulled off a small explosive prank at school. While most kids were focused on exams, Steve was already thinking differently, trying to see the world from new angles. When Steve was 10, his family moved to Los Altos, California, right in the heart of Silicon Valley, where technology was booming. One day, Steve saw a computer for the first time. It was huge, almost the size of a room, but it fascinated him. He thought, this machine can solve problems. What else can it do? That moment sparked his lifelong passion for technology. As Steve grew older, that curiosity became obsession. In high school, he met a man who would change his life. Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was a genius at building electronics. And the two quickly became best friends. They shared the same love for innovation and creativity. Their first invention together was a small device called the Blue Box, which allowed people to make free long-distance calls. It was technically illegal, but it proved how bold and clever they were. Steve later said, without the Blue Box, there would have been no Apple. After high school, Steve went to Reed College in Oregon. But surprisingly, he dropped out after just 6 months. Why? Because he felt college wasn't teaching him what he truly wanted to learn. He didn't want to waste his parents' money. Still, he continued attending a few classes that interested him. One of them was calligraphy. It seemed useless at the time, but years later, that class inspired the beautiful fonts used in Apple computers. This teaches us a powerful lesson. Never stop learning. You never know when something small will change your future. In 1974, Steve traveled to India, searching for deeper meaning, something beyond success and money. There, he learned about spirituality, focus, and mindfulness. He spent time walking through villages, visiting temples, and understanding how peace comes from within. This journey changed his way of thinking. He discovered how to stay calm, think clearly, and trust his intuition. When he returned to the US, he was no longer just a curious young man. He had a clear vision and a strong purpose in life. At 21 years old, Steve and his friend Steve Wozniak started their own company in a small garage at his parents' home. They called it Apple. Why Apple? Because Steve loved the simplicity, freshness, and friendliness of the fruit. He wanted his company to reflect those same qualities. Simple, fresh, and creative. Their first product, the Apple I, was built completely by hand, using very few parts and a lot of imagination. It wasn't perfect, but it worked beautifully for its time. That small wooden computer marked the beginning of something extraordinary, the start of a revolution that would soon change the entire world of technology. Steve's early life shows that success doesn't come from perfection. It comes from passion, hard work, and perseverance. Even when others doubted him, Steve believed in himself. He and Wozniak worked tirelessly on the Apple I, selling it to small computer stores and hobbyists. It wasn't a huge hit, but it gave them the confidence and funds to dream bigger. Steve wanted computers not just for experts but for everyone. Easy, friendly, and beautiful. This dream led to their next creation, the Apple II. It was one of the first personal computers with color graphics and ready-to-use features. The Apple II became a massive success, turning Apple into a multi-million-dollar company almost overnight. At just 23, Steve Jobs became a millionaire. But money wasn't his main motivation. Changing the world was. Steve was known for his perfectionism. He demanded the best from everyone. If something wasn't perfect, he'd make his team start again. Some found him difficult, but his attention to detail made Apple products stand out. He once said, "When you look at a product, you shouldn't just see how it works. You should feel it." This obsession with design and experience defined Apple. By the early 1980s, Steve dreamed of creating a computer that was not only powerful but also friendly and elegant. This dream became the Macintosh. It introduced the mouse and graphical user interface, features we still use today. The Mac was designed to make technology simple and human-centered. Computers are not about technology, Steve said. They're about helping people unlock their creativity. In 1984, the Macintosh launched with a now famous commercial during the Super Bowl. It showed Apple as a company that would break barriers and free people from dull, traditional machines. But not everything went smoothly. Steve's demanding nature led to conflicts inside Apple. Some colleagues thought he was too controlling. In 1985, Apple's board removed Steve from his own company. Being fired from Apple was devastating for him. But later, he said it was the best thing that ever happened. It allowed him to think creatively again. After leaving Apple, Steve started a new company called Next, focused on building powerful computers for education and business. Around the same time, he bought a small animation studio called Pixar. At first, Pixar struggled, but Steve believed in its potential. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated movie. It became a huge hit and made Pixar a household name. While Steve was working on Next and Pixar, Apple was declining without him. By the mid-1990s, the company was close to bankruptcy. In 1997, Apple made a bold decision. They invited Steve back. When he returned, Apple was in chaos. Sales were down, and people had lost faith. But Steve wasn't afraid. He simplified everything, canceling unimportant projects and focusing on only a few great ones. In 1998, he launched the iMac, a colorful, fun, and easy-to-use computer. It was a huge success and brought Apple back to life. Steve's magic touch was back. He made Apple focus on simplicity. Instead of creating dozens of products, he said, "Let's make a few great ones." Then came another bold move. Steve partnered with Microsoft, Apple's biggest rival. Many people were shocked. But Steve said, "If we want to survive, we have to be practical." The deal gave Apple new life and restored public trust. By the late 1990s, Steve was ready to change the world again. His goal: create products that were beautiful, powerful, and easy to use. In 2001, Apple launched the iPod, a small device that could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket. It completely changed how people listened to music. Steve said, "With the iPod, you can carry your entire music library everywhere." It wasn't just a gadget. It was freedom and joy. The iPod became a cultural phenomenon. Steve led Apple not just as a CEO, but like an artist creating a masterpiece. He cared about every tiny detail. The colors, the packaging, even how products felt in your hands. He believed that design and function must work together. He said, "Design is not just what it looks like. Design is how it works." In 2007, Steve introduced the product that changed everything: the iPhone. It wasn't just a phone. It was a camera, a music player, and a mini computer, all in one. Before the iPhone, phones were bulky and confusing. Steve wanted something so simple anyone could use it. He said, "The iPhone is the best phone, the best music player, and the best internet communicator, all in your pocket." The iPhone was an instant success and changed the way people lived. The iPhone wasn't just a product. It was a revolution. People loved its smooth touchscreen, beautiful design, and how easy it was to use. It wasn't just a device. It became a part of people's lives. Steve didn't just make technology. He made people feel connected. He believed technology should make life simpler, not harder. He once said, "Technology is best when it becomes invisible. When you don't even think about it. That's when magic happens." In 2008, Apple launched the App Store, an online place where people could download apps for their iPhones. Before this, phones could only do basic things like calling or texting. But with apps, people could play games, learn new skills, connect with others, and explore the world in new ways. The App Store created opportunities for millions of developers and entrepreneurs. Steve didn't just build a company. He built a new digital world. While Steve was transforming technology, he was also facing a personal battle. In 2003, he was diagnosed with a rare type of pancreatic cancer. At first, he tried natural treatments instead of surgery, hoping to heal on his own. But as his health worsened, he finally agreed to surgery. Even during his illness, Steve continued to work. He once said, "I want to put a dent in the universe before I go." His courage inspired everyone around him. In 2010, Steve introduced the iPad, a device bigger than a phone but smaller than a laptop. Many people doubted it, asking, "Why do we need this?" But Steve believed the iPad would change how people read, watched, and worked. He said, "The iPad is advanced technology that feels natural and simple. It's magical." Once again, he proved the critics wrong. The iPad became another global success. By 2010, Steve Jobs was more than just a businessman. He was a global icon, a symbol of innovation and determination. But behind the success, his health was slowly declining. Even so, he never stopped working. He believed that life was short and should be lived with purpose. He often told his team, "You only get one life. Make it count." Under his leadership, Apple became one of the most valuable companies in the world. Millions of people owned iPhones, iPads, and Mac computers. But Steve's vision went beyond products. He wanted everything Apple made to work together seamlessly. Your phone, computer, and tablet should all feel connected. He believed technology should make life easier, not more complicated. While Steve was changing the world, he also loved his family deeply. He was married to Laureen Powell Jobs, a strong and intelligent woman who supported him through every challenge. Together, they had 3 children, Reed, Erin, and Eve. Steve also had a daughter, Lisa, from a previous relationship. He wasn't always the perfect father, especially in his early years, but he worked hard to become a better one. He often told his kids, "Don't settle for anything less than what you love. Follow your passion." Even with his busy schedule, he made time for simple moments. Walking in the garden, talking with Laureen, or just watching the sunset. As his health worsened, Steve began to think more about the future. He wanted Apple to continue innovating even after he was gone. He worked closely with his team, sharing his ideas and guiding them. One of his famous quotes was, "Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." He believed that success came not from doing everything, but from focusing only on what truly mattered. In 2011, Apple introduced Siri, a virtual assistant that could respond to voice commands. Siri showed how far Apple had come. Technology that could understand and talk to you like a friend. Steve's dream was to make technology feel human, like an extension of your mind. Siri was just the beginning of that future. But that same year, Steve's health forced him to make a difficult decision. In August 2011, he stepped down as Apple's CEO. In his farewell letter, he wrote, "If there ever comes a day when I can no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I will be the first to let you know." Unfortunately, that day has come. He chose Tim Cook as his successor, believing that Tim shared his values and vision for Apple. Even after stepping down, Steve remained involved in Apple's projects. He spent his final months mentoring his team and spending precious time with his family. He often reflected on life, saying, "Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. What matters is that I've done something wonderful for the world." On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. His death was mourned around the world. Millions of people paid tribute to the man who had changed their lives through his ideas and inventions. People gathered outside Apple stores, left flowers, and lit candles to honor him. Many said that Steve didn't just build products. He built dreams and gave people the courage to think differently. But Steve's words and lessons continued to inspire. In 2005, he had given a powerful speech at Stanford University, which became one of the most famous speeches ever. He told 3 simple stories from his life, each one filled with deep wisdom and emotion. His words touched millions of hearts, reminding everyone to believe in themselves, to love what they do, and to never give up, no matter how hard life becomes. The first story was about connecting the dots. Steve explained how he dropped out of college but stayed to attend calligraphy classes. At the time, it seemed pointless, but years later, it helped him design the beautiful fonts of the Macintosh. He said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you must trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." The lesson: every experience, even the small ones, can lead to something bigger later. The second story was about love and loss. Steve spoke about being fired from Apple, the company he had built. He said it was one of the hardest experiences of his life, but it also set him free to be creative again. "Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith," he said. "The only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did." This story reminds us to keep moving forward, even when life doesn't go as planned. The third story was about death. Steve talked about how being diagnosed with cancer changed how he viewed life. It reminded him that time is precious. He said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." It was his most powerful message. Live with purpose and passion. After his death, Apple continued to grow, releasing products like the Apple Watch, AirPods, and many more. But Steve's influence was still everywhere. In the design, the vision, and the belief in making things simple yet extraordinary. His legacy wasn't just about technology. It was about a mindset, the way he made people think. 1. Challenge the ordinary. Steve never accepted good enough. He pushed for excellence. 2. Focus on quality. He said, "Be a yardstick of quality." Some people aren't used to an environment where excellence is expected. 3. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. These words became his motto. A reminder to keep learning, dreaming, and taking risks. Steve Jobs didn't just create gadgets. He created tools that changed lives. The iPhone connected the world. The Mac gave artists and creators a platform to express themselves. The iPad transformed how people learn and work. His journey teaches us powerful lessons. Believe in yourself, even when others doubt you. Think big, and aim to change the world. Never stop learning, because curiosity leads to growth. Follow your passion, because work becomes meaningful when you love what you do. Steve once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And he was right. Steve Jobs' story is proof that one person, with passion, vision, and courage, can change the course of history. His life was not just about success. It was about resilience, creativity, and belief. Wherever you are in life, his journey reminds you, it's never too late to dream big and make a difference. Our time is limited, but our potential is infinite. Here are a few memorable things that legends and close associates said about Steve Jobs. Jony Ive, Apple's longtime design chief, remembered Jobs as a man whose focus was very simple. Not on power or status, but on making something beautiful and great. Mark Andreessen called Jobs one of the most disagreeable people in the history of humankind, noting that his refusal to accept the status quo and his insistence on extreme detail were part of what made him a genius. Industry observers said that, more than gadgets, Jobs represented integrity and vision. One stated, "We can believe in Steve Jobs, the seemingly uncompromised guru who won't do just anything for a buck." Even though Steve Jobs could be tough and demanding, people admired his passion and dedication. He pushed everyone around him to do their best and think differently. His creativity, courage to take risks, and ability to inspire others made Apple a company that changed the world. Jobs' life showed that vision, hard work, and focus can leave a lasting impact. And that was the incredible journey of Steve Jobs, a true visionary who changed the way we live, work, and dream. His story reminds us to stay hungry, stay foolish, and never stop believing in ourselves. Thank you for watching The Legends in English, where every English inspirational story helps you improve your English and your mindset. Keep learning, keep dreaming, and remember, one idea, one step, and one decision can change your life forever. See you in the next story, where another legend will inspire you to rise higher and think bigger.